All right, we're jumping into Acts chapter 14,
Okay.
verses 1 through 27.
Sounds good.
We're going deep with Paul and Barnabas as they're going around spreading the word.
Yeah.
It's like a journey back in time.
It is really fascinating to see how these early Christians
Yeah.
navigated this world that wasn't always so receptive to their message.
Right.
It was not an easy path for them.
And they faced opposition,
Uh-huh.
but also saw incredible excitement and conversions.
Absolutely. And sometimes in
Yeah.
the same city even.
Yeah, right from the start in Iconium,
Right.
we see this mix of reactions.
Yeah.
They're preaching in the synagogue and they're seeing
Yeah.
Jews and Greeks converting,
Uh-huh.
but then there are others that are just pushing back so hard.
Yeah. And verse 3 even mentions
Yeah.
signs and wonders happening through them.
Yeah, what do you think those were all about?
I think it was likely a mix of things.
Okay.
Healings, prophecies,
Okay.
perhaps even instances of people being delivered from what they understood as demonic influence.
Hmm.
You have to remember back in that time,
Yeah.
in that place,
Yeah.
these signs were really seen as proof of divine power.
Right.
It wasn't just talk.
Right.
People were witnessing something tangible.
So it kind of gave more weight to their words.
It did.
Made it harder to just dismiss them as
Exactly.
crazy.
Exactly. But even those signs weren't enough to convince everyone.
Yeah, no, they faced opposition and had to flee for their safety.
Yes, we see this growing opposition that leads Paul and Barnabas to flee from Iconium for their safety.
Mm-hmm.
They end up in Lystra and Derbe.
Right.
And this is a pattern we see throughout Acts,
Okay.
that the gospel message is often met with resistance.
It makes you wonder, like, what was so controversial
Right.
about their message that it was causing such a stir?
Well, the core message was that Jesus was the Messiah,
Yeah.
the Son of God.
Okay.
And for the Jewish leaders of that time,
Right.
this was just a radical departure.
From their established beliefs.
Yeah.
It challenged their authority and the existing power structures.
Yeah.
So naturally, there was a lot of pushback.
Yeah. So they escaped to Lystra.
Right.
And this is where the story gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Like, they encounter this man who's been crippled from birth,
Yes.
unable to walk,
Right.
and Paul just heals him.
He does.
Like, what a showstopper.
It's such a pivotal moment, not just for the man himself, but
Right.
for how the people of Lystra perceive Paul and Barnabas.
Okay.
You have to remember they were steeped in Roman mythology,
Okay.
where gods were known to walk among humans,
Right, right.
performing miracles.
So they're seeing this crippled man
Yes.
suddenly leap up
Yeah.
and walk,
Uh-huh.
which is described so vividly in verse 10.
Yes.
And they just jump to this really wild conclusion.
Right. They think that Paul and Barnabas are gods themselves.
Wow.
Specifically, they identify Paul with Hermes, the messenger god,
Wow.
and Barnabas with Zeus, the king of the gods. That's crazy.
I know, it's so fascinating.
Yeah.
How their cultural context shaped their interpretation of this event.
Right.
They're seeing the miracle through the lens of their own belief system.
I mean, how else could they explain it?
Right.
It's a miracle to them.
It is.
I mean, we've got doctors and all sorts of things today.
Yeah.
Back then, this was unexplainable.
Absolutely.
But here's where I think we see Paul and Barnabas's
Yes.
unwavering commitment to their faith.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
They are horrified
Right.
by this misidentification.
Yeah.
They vehemently reject any worship
Yes.
that's directed toward them.
This reaction is so important
Yeah.
because it speaks volumes about the core of Christianity,
Okay.
that there is only one true God.
Right. So this rejection,
Mm-hmm.
while a powerful statement of faith,
Yes.
sadly doesn't win everyone over.
Right.
We see the arrival of Jews from Antioch and Iconium,
Yes.
those who had already opposed Paul and Barnabas. They stir up the crowd
Yes, they do.
and turn them against Paul.
It's amazing how quickly the mood shifts.
No, it is right
Like,
now.
1 minute they're being hailed as gods, and the next they're facing this violent mob.
And this is what happens.
It really highlights the volatility of the situation.
Okay.
This crowd, already primed to believe in the supernatural,
Yeah.
now they're swayed by the accusations of these outsiders.
Right.
And it all culminates in Paul being stoned
Oh my God.
and left for dead outside the city.
It's rough.
I know, it's a chilling reminder
It is.
of the dangers
Yeah.
faced by these early Christians simply for spreading their message.
And it makes you think, like, how could they possibly
Yeah.
keep going after experiencing such brutal opposition?
Right. It's amazing, though, this isn't the end for Paul.
Really?
You have the disciples, they gather around him, and he gets up, like, defying death.
So he's okay.
He is. And this resilience,
Yeah.
this unwavering commitment, it's something we see throughout Acts.
Yeah, it's like they were driven by
Yeah.
something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
That kept them going,
It did.
even when things got so tough.
Exactly. And their mission,
Yeah.
it wasn't just about preaching and performing miracles.
Right.
They were laying the foundation
Okay.
for this lasting movement.
Yeah.
So after Derbe, they actually retrace their steps.
Okay.
They go back through Lystra, Iconium, and Antioch.
So it wasn't just like a one-time visit,
Right.
a quick message, and then on to the next town.
No, they were very deliberate
Okay.
about establishing these new communities of believers.
Yeah.
Acts 14.22
Okay.
describes them as confirming the souls of the disciples
Okay.
and exhorting them to continue in the faith.
So like a follow-up,
Mm-hmm.
making sure those who embrace the faith
Yes.
had the tools to stay strong.
Exactly. Especially with all the opposition they were facing.
Right, because they were getting pushed back like crazy.
Yes. And they went a step further. They actually appointed elders in each church
Oh, wow.
to establish leadership structures to ensure continuity and spiritual guidance.
So this wasn't just some spontaneous movement.
Right.
They were actually being strategic
They were.
and thinking long-term.
They were thinking long-term about how these communities would thrive.
That's an important detail
It is.
because it shows that they weren't just focused on like individual conversions.
Right.
They were thinking about the bigger picture
Yes.
of building a sustainable structure for the church to grow.
It really highlights their foresight
Yeah.
and understanding that this movement needed a solid foundation
Yeah.
if it was going to expand
I
and
guess so.
endure.
And speaking of expansion,
Yes.
their journey ultimately takes them back to their starting point,
Mm-hmm.
Antioch.
Antioch.
Acts 14.26 tells us that they sailed back
Yes,
to Antioch,
that's right.
the very place where they had been commissioned
Yes.
for this mission.
And this return is significant because they gather the church together and report on all that God had done with them,
Okay.
highlighting how he had opened the door of faith unto the Gentiles.
Hold on, Gentiles.
Yeah.
Is that like some kind of ancient dessert?
Not quite.
Okay.
It's a term used to refer to those who were not Jewish.
Oh, okay. So they're basically saying that the gospel message
Uh-huh.
was now spreading beyond
Yes,
the Jewish community.
to encompass people of all backgrounds.
Oh, so it's like breaking down barriers and
Yes.
expanding to
Yeah.
a wider audience?
The pivotal moment in the early church's history.
That is huge.
Yeah,
I mean, the inclusion of the Gentiles really broadened the scope
it did.
of Christianity
Yeah,
and contributed to its eventual spread
absolutely.
throughout the Roman Empire and the world.
The world, yes.
So it makes you think about how movements
Yeah,
grow and evolve in unexpected ways.
does.
Like we followed Paul and Barnabas through danger,
Uh-huh.
miracles, rejection, the establishment of new churches.
It's been a wild ride.
It has.
What stands out to you the most from all this?
I think for me, it's that reminder that faith
Yeah,
isn't passive.
it's not.
We see God working through Paul and Barnabas.
Yes,
But we also see their tireless efforts.
we do.
Right. Their
Yeah.
strategic planning,
Mm-hmm.
their unwavering commitment.
Their commitment in the face of opposition.
Like they were saying,
Yeah.
we're not just sitting back,
Yeah.
waiting for things to happen.
Right.
We're actively participating
Participating
in God's work,
in God's work. Yes.
even when it's risky,
Yes.
even when it's hard.
Exactly.
And that's a challenge for us today.
It is, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
How are we actively living out our beliefs,
Yes.
even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient?
Right.
How are we contributing
Yeah.
to something larger than ourselves?
Yes.
Something that actually makes a difference in the world.
That's the question. Powerful questions to consider.
Yeah, and speaking of questions,
Yeah.
there's this one detail
Okay.
in this story that's always intrigued me.
Okay.
You know those signs and wonders that we talked about?
Yeah.
I always wonder, like, what did those actually look like?
That's a great question.
Like, were they these big flashy spectacles?
Right.
Or were they more subtle?
Yeah, the text doesn't give us a ton of specifics.
Okay.
But looking at other parts of Acts
Mm-hmm.
and even the Gospels,
Yeah.
we can kind of get a sense of the kinds of things that were happening.
Okay.
There were definitely healings,
Okay.
sometimes dramatic ones.
Like the crippled man in Lystra.
Exactly like that.
Yeah.
There might have been prophetic pronouncements, words of guidance or insight
Mm.
given to individuals or communities.
Yeah.
And there are even some accounts that describe
Yeah.
People being freed from what they understood as demonic influences.
Right. It's almost like we're seeing these different facets
Yes.
of the same power at work,
Uh-huh.
right?
It is.
Different ways that God's presence
Yes.
was impacting people's lives.
And it's important to remember that for
Yeah.
those who witnessed these events,
Right.
these weren't just abstract concepts to them.
Right.
These were tangible experiences.
Right. They saw it.
They saw it. They felt it firsthand.
It's easy for us to read about it in a book,
Right.
but imagine actually being there,
Exactly.
seeing someone who'd been blind suddenly regain their sight.
Yes. It would have been undeniable proof
Yeah.
that something extraordinary was happening.
So these signs and wonders weren't just like
Right.
added for dramatic effect.
Right.
They actually played a real role
They did.
in shaping people's understanding of the message that Paul and Barnabas were preaching.
Absolutely. And it makes you think, how do we experience or express that same kind of power today?
Right. Are there ways that we can point others
Yeah.
towards something beyond the ordinary? Something that speaks to a deeper truth or a greater hope?
It's a challenging question.
It is, yeah. So we've explored these dramatic events.
Yeah.
The strategic way that Paul and Barnabas established these new churches.
Yes.
And the role that those signs and wonders played in their mission.
It's fascinating stuff.
But what does it all mean for us today?
Right.
You know, as we navigate our own world, our own beliefs, our own challenges.
Here's what I find really fascinating about this passage.
Okay.
It's not just a historical account.
Right.
It's like a blueprint.
Blueprint.
Yeah, it shows us how to engage with a world that doesn't always agree with us.
Oh, yeah.
A world that might even push back against what we believe.
So we can learn from their experiences.
Absolutely. Look at the challenges they faced.
Yeah.
Skepticism, hostility, outright violence.
I mean, people still face that today.
They do, especially when they're advocating for change.
Yeah.
Or challenging the status quo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yet Paul and Barnabas didn't give up.
They did.
They adapted their approach.
Yes.
They persevered.
Uh-huh.
They found ways to connect with people.
Yes.
Despite their differences.
It's a powerful reminder that change doesn't always come easily.
No, it doesn't.
But staying true to our convictions, coupled with genuine compassion and a willingness to listen, can make a real difference.
I like that. And, you know, one final thought to leave you with.
Okay.
Remember those signs and wonders.
Yes.
They weren't just about spectacle.
Right.
They pointed to something deeper.
Yeah.
A power that could transform lives.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder, how can we, in our own way,
Right.
demonstrate the reality of what we believe? Not just through words, but through actions that reflect love, hope, and the possibility of positive change.
What a powerful image to hold on to.
It is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Acts 14,
Okay.
I think the challenge for all of us is this.
Okay.
How do we embody that same spirit of courage and compassion? How do we engage in conversations,
Yes.
even difficult ones,
Right. Yeah.
with respect and a genuine desire to understand?
Yes.
And how do we live in a way
Yeah.
that points others towards something more,
Absolutely.
something that transcends the everyday?
Those are the questions, my friend.
Yeah.
That I hope will linger with you long after this deep dive is over.
Right,
Because ultimately,
Yeah.
the story of Acts 14 isn't just about Paul and Barnabas.
right.
It's about the enduring power of faith,
Faith.
hope, and love to shape hearts, inspire change,
Inspire change.
and leave a lasting impact on the world.
Powerful stuff. So, on that note,
Yeah.
we'll leave you to ponder those questions.
Okay.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.